Welcome back, everybody, to another courtroom episode of Lockdown 23 in 1. That's right, today we're jumping back into an Ohio courtroom to witness a Starbucks robber get sentenced. And for those of y'all that don't know, I make it a thing, to not watch the complete video. I try to put my criminal justice skills to test. See how much time I think that these people are going to be sentenced to. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned, like yesterday's episode, man. Those two carjackings. One of them had a kid in the car, and he only got 10 years in prison. But, like I said, and I didn't know until closer towards the end, how young the individual was. When you committed a crime as a juvenile, man, it's a toss-up in the courtroom. Usually, they get blessed, like homeboy from yesterday. But today's not the case, alright? We got a full-grown man with a long rap sheet going in front of the judge again, like I said, for a robbery at Starbucks. And just by it being at a Starbucks, I can smell the burnt coffee smoke from here. Homeboy's gonna get brewed in the courtroom, if you're to ask me. But let's get into it, find out what's gonna happen. If you're new to the channel and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Alright, put on your Dockers and Fresh Press button up. We got a judge to impress, and Bobby, you're lucky the judge didn't see you yesterday. He would have held you in contempt with that camo vest. Like I said yesterday, if the judge doesn't do it today, I'm gonna do it myself. Oh man, and we haven't even got to the courtroom analysis either yet, but that box of tissues screams tears from a forgotten smoke past.
On the record in two cases, 669-047, 669-157. State of Ohio versus Dominique Hullum. Good morning, Mr. Hullum.
Good morning, Judge.
Mr. Hullum is in court with his attorney, Bill Mooney. On behalf of the state of Ohio is prosecutor Zach Anderson. We are here for sentencing today. Mr. Mooney, is there any reason not to move forward?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I have letters that have been submitted on behalf of Mr. Hullum. There has been no pre-sentence investigation. On behalf of the state of Ohio, Mr. Anderson, what would you like to place on the record?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
These two cases contain very serious conduct. I know you've heard the charges and the plea, but I want to provide you with background facts for what happened in these cases. In case 669-157, November 28th of last year, the victim in this case, Nicholas Rosa, it's Rosa, R-O-S-A, was walking down Berea Road on his way to work when a male driving a Pontiac G6 pulled up beside him and asked, "Where is Jamie?" The victim said, "I don't know anybody by the name of Jamie," and looked at him puzzlingly.
That was the video, by the way, not my internet. Do not come at me like that in the comments section.
Suddenly, the suspect pulled out a gun and fired a single shot toward the victim. The victim ran off, and as he was calling 911, here's another shot coming toward his direction before the car fled the area. A similar incident was reported in Parma, consistent with the facts, and in that case, they got the license plates of the vehicle. The license plates of the vehicle returned to a Tanya Hullum. When administered a photo lineup, the victim, Nick Rosa, positively identified Dominique Hullum as the person who had shot at him on November 28th.
Man, oh man, yep, those dreads died halfway. Make it a sweet, easy pick in that lineup, don't it? I remember I was put in a lineup with a bunch of my buddies, and I'm the one that committed the crime, but the person picked all my buddies. They didn't have nothing to do with nothing.
Case 669-047. This is a case out of North Olmsted, March 21st of this year. 8 o'clock in the morning, a Tuesday morning, Dominique Hullum entered Starbucks at 27178 Lorraine Road and pointed a pistol at the employee at the front desk, ordered him and everyone on the ground. Dominique Hullum then demanded the contents of the register before placing them in 2 plastic bags and fleeing the scene, gun in hand.
Wow. So, this is kind of like a reverse midnight burglary. And what I mean by that is, in the state of Virginia, you get more time for a burglary that happens past midnight, because the courts say the chances of a family being in that house sleeping go up dramatically, so you have no care at all that that's happening. Naturally, you'll get more time for that than a regular burglary. And in this case, it's kind of reversed. because he went into a Starbucks at 8 a.m. You know, it's a morning spot, right? There's gonna be people there. It's not like he went in right before closing, right? He went pretty much at the prime time hour for everyone to get their coffee. And he made all of them lay down. If he gets spared after making everyone lay down on the ground in a Starbucks, man, I'll be completely shocked.
North Olmsted Police was quick to respond. Officer Kelly immediately identified Dominique fleeing north on Dover Center, the bag of money in one hand, the pistol in the other. As Officer Kelly bumped Dominique to try to get him to drop the gun, Dominique turned and fired multiple shots into the front of Officer Kelly's patrol vehicle,
Wow.
nearly striking Officer Kelly as he was leaving the vehicle. Dominique then fled the scene in a Ford Focus and led police in a short pursuit down Dover Center into a cul-de-sac neighborhood on Kingston Circle. The cars became trapped in mud in the backyard on Kingston Circle, with Detective Roman parked behind the suspect and Officer Jack Butcher forward and to the side, pinning his car in place. As Officer Butcher emerged from his vehicle, Dominique raised his firearm and again fired a single shot through the windshield at Officer Butcher.
Wow, so far before this whole Starbucks incident, he got into a little gunfight with someone else. Leaves that situation, goes, robs the Starbucks, and gets into a gunfight with the police. This right here, there's no way he can duck doing a lot of time in prison. There's no way.
In case 669047, the North Olmsted Police Department would request $600 in restitution for the damage to the police cruisers that were repaired by them. And today we have representatives of the North Olmsted Police, Detective Marjorie Jones, Officer Chris Kelly, Officer Jake Butcher, and Detective Manuel Roman. And I believe they intend to make statements.
Please.
I don't know if we need to hear these officers' statements, man.
You can come to the podium.
Come to the podium.
Yes, sir. And could you tell me your name and spell it for me, please?
Yes. Officer Chris Kelly, Kelley, with North Olmsted Police Department.
All right, officer, what would you like me to know?
I would just like to say two things I was raised on. I was raised on many things, but two principles were justice and forgiveness. That day, Mr. Hullum decided to make actions where, as presented before, he walked into Starbucks without care for the lives of the people there and robbed them at gunpoint. Where he then encountered me, fired one shot into the front of my cruiser directly at me, second shot as I'm exiting the cruiser, re-aiming towards where my position was, and fired another shot before getting in his cruiser or his car, going towards a school zone into a neighborhood where he engaged in more gunfire with our officers. The justice portion that I was raised on is our actions, there's consequences for our actions. And as the court sees fit for Mr. Holmes' actions that day, I trust that those will be done. On the forgiveness aspect, that was another aspect I was raised on. And Mr. Holmes, I do forgive you. I've been praying for you, and will continue to do so. And I don't know what everything that you're going through, the demons that you have in your life, but I hope during this time that you're able to find some healing with that, and with the support of hopefully your family as well, being able to help you through that. I hope that does happen.
That was a pretty good little speech, believe it or not, from the officer. If you're to ask me, especially the forgiveness part. But sadly, even if I was the defendant sitting there in the orange suit, I would know that prayers ain't gonna help me today. At least that's what I tell myself, because there ain't no ducking it. No ducking this smoke, man. It's coming like a Sunday brisket. I'll put my whole house on it.
Yeah, this is something that, not only affects those involved, but the family members, my family as well. And I know the other officers involved and the people at Starbucks as well, their families.
Yeah, homeboy shell-shocked from that gunshot.
The different things, being shot at is, taking this oath is something that could happen, but when it does, the effects that it does have on you and your family is something that it takes some time to get through. It's something that stays with you for a while. That's all.
It stays with you forever. Look, I've had shots land right beside me. I will never forget it. And another thing I'll never forget about it is thinking I got hit and didn't even know. Tapping around to make sure I wasn't Swiss cheesed. Terrifying situation getting shot at, let alone just being in the area when a shooting's taking place. You know, so when you see those bullets land just a couple inches from you, it changes things a bit. All right, so we're going to hear from the defendant's attorney and the defendant.
Has previously.
If no one else wishes to speak?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
He's been previously found guilty of theft, drug possession, aggravated robbery, and robbery. Has spent 3 years in prison. And regarding a sentence, the state would request that the court hand out a sentence to the defendant reflecting the extremely serious nature of the conduct and reflecting the facts that you heard here today.
This guy has already been convicted of theft and robbery. Been to prison for 3 years. He's had his slap on the wrist. Anytime you go in front of the courts after you already been to prison, regardless of what it is, man, you're going to get sentenced a little more than the other person. Also, if you ever come into the courtroom with a robbery after you already been convicted of a robbery, bringing back the same kind of crimes, you definitely haven't learned in the court's eyes, man. This guy is looking at, if you were to ask me, like 50 years. At least a couple decades.
Thank you. Mr. Mooney, on behalf of your client.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Certainly, as described, the crimes that were committed are very serious, Your Honor, and there's no denying that. Mr. Holland stepped up last week and admitted to committing those crimes. And, Your Honor, this morning, I want to tell you a little bit about Mr. Holland. He's 31 years old, grew up in the city of Cleveland, in the Ohio City area. And he, Judge, he comes from a good family. Most of his family is here this morning with us. His mother's here, his grandmother's here, other members of his family. And with the court's indulgence, I think his grandmother would like to say a few words. Your Honor, with respect to sentencing, Dominique is ready to serve a sentence. We would ask that the court would consider a few things. First, he is going to be serving quite a bit of mandatory time, and considering the purposes of felony sentencing, and the fact that considering those purposes, minimum sanctions, according to law, are required. Minimum sanctions don't mean a few years in prison, Judge. Here, certainly, Mr. Holland's going to be facing a minimum mandatory of 11 years. And I'd ask Your Honor to consider that while in prison, he's going to have an opportunity to get rehabilitated.
Now, I know a lot of people are probably looking at this guy's attorney like, he ain't doing that good. But I'm here to tell you, he's in a lose-lose situation. You heard what he just said. He has mandatory minimum time to do. If I were to guess, it's definitely because of the gun charges. Like in Virginia, convicted felon get caught with a gun. It's a mandatory, 3 to 5 years? I think it's 5. But when you get hit with those mandatories, you have to do them. And they can't be ran concurrent usually. So we'll find out. But the guy said that he's already facing a mandatory minimum of 11 years. But if I were to guess, like I said, I don't think he's probably going to get 50, maybe 30, possibly. But there's no way he's just going to get 11 for all that.
All right, Mr. Holland, is there anything that you wish to say?
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to sincerely apologize to the officer. I wasn't in my right state of mind. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. And, I did. It wasn't meant. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. I sincerely apologize to you. I'm gonna take my time and try to better myself. And I sincerely am sorry. And I'm just grateful that I didn't hurt any of you guys. And I don't care about being hurt. I deserve everything. I never once complained about it. I deserved it. And I'm just grateful to this day that I didn't hurt anybody, and I apologize to everybody in Starbucks. And I'm just gonna take my time as a man and learn from this situation, but I really wasn't there mentally, like, I wasn't there. Like, and I really am sorry for shooting at your car. And I really don't remember the incident, but I'm sorry for my actions.
Thank you, Mr. Hullum. I have considered all of the information that's been presented to me today.
I like to consider myself a good judge of character. And, you know, even though he's thrown into the mix, he didn't really remember too much of it, and he wasn't in the right state of mind. Kind of an excuse list, if you're to ask me. But either way, he's still taking accountability for what he did, and I feel like it was authentic. But regardless of how much time you might be facing in a courtroom, this is typically how you're supposed to be acting. Very respectful, and take your time on the chin like a man.
I have reviewed the history of the mental health forensic evaluations, the letters written on behalf of Mr. Hullum, and the statements made here today. I've also reviewed the purposes and principles of sentencing pursuant to Revised Code 29.11, the serious and recidivism factors relevant to these two cases and yourself, Mr. Hullum, pursuant to Revised Code 29.12, and the need for deterrence, incapacitation, rehabilitation, and restitution. Prison sentence is mandatory in this case. In case 669157. Now the sentence is complicated, and because of the mandatory portions of these two cases, they're interrelated. The sentences have to be interrelated because of the nature of these offenses. But I will start with case 669157. Count 1, felonious assault, a felony of the second degree. This is a qualifying offense. And I am going to sentence you on this.
She's typing that thing up like an account.
To an indefinite sentence of 2 to 3 years in prison on the underlying charge of felonious assault.
Not too
you
bad.
do any amount on that time, you will serve 3 years prior to and consecutive to the sentence I just imposed for the mandatory firearm specification. Case 669047. Count 1 is the qualifying offense. I am imposing 3 years on the firearm specification. That 3 years will be served prior to and consecutive to the 4 to 6 years that I'm imposing for the charge of aggravated robbery. Count 4. I am sentencing you to 54 months on the firearm specification. That will be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying sentence of 4 years. Count 7, failure to comply. A felony of the third degree. I am sentencing you to 1.5 years in prison on the charge of failure to comply.
Lightweight.
Count 11. I'm sentencing you to 1 year in prison. Now, pursuant to Revised Code 29.14B1G, by law, all 3 firearm specifications across the 2 cases have to be run consecutively. So those 3 specifications will run back to back. So that's 3 plus 3 plus 4.5 years for a total of 10.5 years of mandatory firearm specification time. That mandatory means, Mr. Hullum, that you will not be eligible for good time credit. You will not be eligible for transitional control, and you will not be eligible for judicial release during any portion of this sentence.
No good time. 100% day for day. On what'd she say, 11.5 years? That's Smokeville.
Your jail time will also not count towards the mandatory portion of your sentence.
Wow.
Further, I am also required to impose be sentenced for failure to comply consecutive to any other sentence that I impose.
Everything's
The
consecutive.
way that I'm calculating your sentence is you'll serve 10.5 years on the firearm specification. Then you will serve 1.5 years for the charge of failure to comply. That brings us to 12 years. I am ordering. I do find that consecutive sentences are warranted in the present case, and I'm ordering Mr. Hullum to serve the sentences on both counts 1 in case 669047 and 669157 consecutively. After reviewing the record and the evidence, I find that consecutive sentences are necessary to punish the offender, protect the public from future crime, and are not disproportionate to the conduct or danger posed by Mr. Hullum. And that Mr. Hullum's criminal history demonstrates that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public. If you add all of that together, that is a total prison sentence of 18 years. When we add in the indefinite portion of the sentence, that brings your total sentence to 18 to 20 years in prison. You will get jail credit of 252 days that will count towards the sentence that you are serving once you finish the mandatory portion of your sentence. Mr. Hullum, please turn forward.
Man.
On those qualifying sentences,
Man, 20 years of smoke like a pack of ciggies. But before we wrap this up, I think it's time for a quick courtroom analysis. Bobby, you piece of shit. I told you I was going to hold you in contempt. Not much to review on this judge's desk. She keeps it kind of bland. Hand sanitizer, possible white lightning, and of course the box of Kleenexes. Anytime you ever see that on a judge's desk, man, it's trouble. That means people are leaving on a regular basis weeping. We got the pet detective here, prosecutor. He's got a regal blue suit on that matches the defendant's attorney's Apple icon. I don't know if this was intended or just a lucky day. Not for the defendant, of course. But it's been a while, I'm not gonna lie. A very long while. Since I've seen Arctic birch driftwood shaped into what I call the infinity wall. You don't know which way's up or down in this place. People tend to walk out this courtroom not only weeping, but disoriented. Rumor has it that this building can actually be stretched and the wall can expand like a spring. That's just a rumor though, just a rumor. Ohio knows what they're doing with the furniture though. Persian sand melted down to make these glass tops. I haven't seen nothing like that since the 80s. That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode and realize, you can't just be walking up into Starbucks trying to rob the joint. You will get smoked to a few decades. Mandatory decades, man. This guy's got to do some serious mandatory minimum time. Day for day, 100%. Almost 20 years worth. I think he only has like 2 years where he can be eligible for good time if the judge allows it. I'm surprised he didn't get abduction, kidnapping for all them people that he may get on the ground. In Virginia, man, they would have given him all that and abduction for each person. So, if you're to ask me, he kind of got spared. He's already been to prison for robbery, commits another robbery, gets everyone on the ground, shoots at all the cops. 20 years, honestly, if you're to ask me, is a blessing. A blessing in disguise, but still a blessing. Let me know what y'all think, man. You get too much time, not enough time, or just the right amount? I actually thought he was going to get about 30, so I wasn't too far off on this one. Started off with 50, but that seemed a little outrageous. But stay tuned, I got plenty more content coming your way, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.